It's such a pleasure to be with you since I was in the emergency room on Sunday, and only thanks to Sylvia and Thais and their assistants, I got to come. And I said to the doctor, I have to go to Lisbon. All of these people are my family because they all love books. So I want to thank Sylvia and Thais especially, and the Appel, which is just an amazing organization. I'm learning so much. But I want to say something that I've never said in my entire life. After yesterday, I have president envy. I mean, to have a president who reads Malraux, T.S. Eliot, and well, no, he didn't say Tolkien, but Tolstoy. That was just fantastic to understand what you have and what I don't. But I also want to thank Alberta, because yesterday she set me up. She said that reading takes time. The brain takes time. And indeed, that's going to be part of the leitmotif of my talk with you about the cerebral beauty of reading and how it transforms all of us who become literate. So the beginning of my talk is really about the fact that we should consider, just as the UN has, reading as a basic human right. But what we fail often to understand is that reading changes the brain. But that reading brain can be changed by how we teach, by how we read, which is very much aligned to not just what we read. We are not only what we read. I will try to convince you we are also how we read, and how we read is going to be and is being changed by digital culture and AI in ways that we are only in the beginning of understanding. Now, I begin with Toni Morrison, who in her Nobel Prize speech said something I want all of us philosophically to think about. Word work is sublime because it is generative. We have this spark as human beings that language drives us, drives thought. Thought drives how we read. And what she said was, we do language. That may be the measure of our lives. Yesterday, when I heard this amazing dialogue about the Portuguese language, that was a fantastic moment. I'm also a psycholinguist, not just a cognitive neuroscientist. And so I was fascinated by all the conversations that you have had, and even I, over dinner. Now, the reason why I came, other than Sylvia's amazing, compelling invitation, was because Alberto Miguel is here. He's my favorite reader in the world. And now he's yours. And I will see him tonight, and he wishes you all well. But he said something very important. Reading is cumulative and proceeds with geometric progression. Each new reading builds upon what the reader has read before. I want to insist that you think about that as part of my worries when I hear, especially in the United States, that a smaller and smaller percentage of people are reading even a single book a year. When you think, as I must think, that the brain is elaborated over time by what we read, you understand the pernicious consequences if we do not read. Now, I'm going to give you, within 15 minutes, Reading Brain 101. It's impossible to do that, but I intend to have you appreciate what the brain does in all its beautiful complexity when we read. Now, the first thing I need to tell you, however, unlike what most people understand, reading is not natural. No one was born with a gene or even an area of the brain that was only for reading. We have an amazing capacity to form a circuit for things that are new to us cognitively as a species. It's an absolutely beautiful design principle that we use to read. So when you learn to read, you are connecting parts that were not connected in the same way before. But there's a catch. And the catch is that that circuit has to be plastic. Now, I really want you to understand this notion of neuroplasticity, because it means that that brain circuitry will change with the environment, with all kinds of things that are going on, with the language itself. If you look here, you can see just a few of the differences between English and Chinese and kanji. You need more of the visual real estate in the occipital cortex if you're reading Chinese than if you're reading Portuguese. In other words, the brain reflects the writing system and how we read. Now, I'm only going to give you one piece of what you do when you read. And that's some of the most sophisticated processes that develop over time. I'll give you 3 of them, but there are many that when we talk as a whole group of us about why reading is important, we are building the connections around the brain in ways that a non-literate person does not have connected. Now, the three processes I want to emphasize that are so important to me. The first is actually what Alberto said, bringing our background knowledge, what we possessed before, we make analogies to what we are reading in front of us. That's background knowledge. And we want our children to have that background knowledge to be able to evaluate what they read. But the next one is what I will call cognitive and affective empathy. This cannot be exaggerated, especially in development. What we are learning is to pass over outside our own egocentric selves into the lives, thoughts, feelings, historical epochs that we never knew before. It's an amazing concept. And Junot Diaz said this beautifully. The novel is the closest we can ever come to telepathy. We enter the lives of others. But very, very important in this moment, never more important, I believe, than this moment, is our ability to put all those connections in the brain together and make critical, analytic thought. We are a species that has the capacity for analyzing. Our frontal lobe does a dance. I'm looking at several of you with exposed frontal lobes. It's beautiful. There's like a dance that I would use you, but you won't do it. I shouldn't do it. But it's like a dance. When we're reading something, we're making hypotheses. We're generating thoughts. We refute them. And then we make an imprimatur. Yes, that is true. Or, if we do not use it, you can imagine we are ever more susceptible to misinformation and disinformation. And those of us who go to only one set of sources of information, and that consolidates the familiar but does not invite true analysis. So when we talk in our society about what is happening to truth, and this is a conversation that in and of itself could be part of the work of this conference. How do we have readers who seek the truth? Because it is under siege by, not just by distraction, but by intentional mis and disinformation. What we need in our society are children who are well-versed in thinking when they read, across every medium. The ultimate aspect of reading, however, is what you and I do when we put these precious milliseconds together. Now, Alberta, when she said yesterday, the brain needs time, reading needs time, everything I just said to you requires extra milliseconds. Now, think about this when you are reading and skimming and scrolling. You are imperceptibly short-circuiting everything I just told you. So when we talk about the digital dilemma, We're talking about questions about whether the affordances of reading on either medium, and there will be more than just what we're talking about today, whether there are special affordances that have advantages and disadvantages for things like complexity, the amount of density of language. The language itself is potentially changed by the medium. Now, Marshall McLuhan's student was this amazing philosopher, Walter Ong, who really said something I need you to remember. Technologies are not mere exterior aids. We use the words, oh, they're tools. I need you to understand, just with Walter Ong's statement, that they are not only exterior, they are making interior transformations on the lives of those who use them. This is an important aspect. It's not just a tool. If it were only a tool, I wouldn't come all the way from Los Angeles here. Do it yourself. No, we have to realize the implications of having interior transformations. Now, Walter Ong also said, along with my colleague, whom I really want to get to know more, that it is essential that we understand how to raise children steeped in both cultures. Here we have the absolute necessity to confront the fact we have no binaries that are possible for our future. This is out. What we need to know developmentally is what is disrupted or not developing at each stage of the child and our own development. That's what we need to know. And if only even though I am near Silicon Valley, I can't seem to influence them to ask the question before they innovate. It's not innovation that's wrong. It's our failure to ask, what will this innovation change, disrupt, or diminish in our species? Because every medium has cost, advantages, and you've heard some of the advantages, but it also has weaknesses. I want to say one really fast couple of things because I only have 2 minutes left. Our kids, the more digital exposure, the more the attention and language areas are changing from 0 to 1 and 0 to 8. And if we look at older children, we're getting to the point where we can understand that academic performance is being absolutely influenced by the amount of digital exposure. This isn't about an either or. It's about distraction, hyperstimulation, etc. That's affecting development. And if we look at our young people, our 20-somethings, we see Delgado Salmoran from Barcelona doing fantastic research showing if the same person reads the same thing in print versus digital and asks comprehension question of that person. This is over 171,000 subjects. It's a meta-analysis. They are better on print. They are even better on print if they are digital natives only the last years of that study. Why do they, however, think they're better on the screen? And they tell us. And they say, because we're faster. Here lies the pernicious myth that speed is better for thought. In the reading brain, okay, I am never going to use deep reading on your email. Don't even think that I will. But if you send me something that you want me to truly read, I print it out. But mostly, I want you to realize that our skimming has consequences. We are basically skimmers who use 2 modes. It's kind of funny. We use a Z, word spot, you know how you do it, and then you go down the bottom. Our students are even doing essays, or they do an F. And an F, they do a little bit at the top, a little bit in the middle, and then go down and make sure they know the end. This is also you. This is often how you are reading when you skim, which means that your ability to focus and concentrate is changing. Now, Italo Calvino I connect him to Toni Morrison said that we are losing this spark of what language is, that drive to articulate. And the drive to articulate through writing is changing when there's no effort made in the circuit. I need you to realize I use ChatGPT just as much as you do, but I will never use it all the time or allow myself to rely on it. Why? Because the very effort I make to retrieve, the very effort I make to write, and all of you who are writers know this, those efforts build the circuitry. That's what you need to always think about. Now, the consequences of thinking about these issues aren't just ending in our children. I believe, just as your president said yesterday, there is direct linkage between how we read and democracy. If our citizens are reading at a level, and in the United States, one and only 1/3 of our 8th graders are reading at the level of deep reading that I just described to you. Only 1/3. What does that portend for the future of a democratic society where they do not have the same critical analytic background to examine what demagogues around the world will be saying, or disinformation, misinformation? There's also something that I'm not writing on this, and that's the perception of beauty. You know, part of the amazing aspect of this conference, this group, is all of you are wedded and have been wedded to the perception of beauty as well as truth. Just your sheer presence proves that. We do not want to lose either empathy or critical analysis or our own insights, to be sure, but we also don't want to lose beauty. So I will end with 2 thoughts. I've written a book. Now, it's in Italian, and it's in Brazil, and it's not here. Do something. I don't really, you know what I mean. I want you to know that I have very much a hopeful look at our future. It requires knowledge. When there are contradictory truths like digital is great and print is great, and what does that dyssynchrony mean? We need to have what Nicholas of Cusa, a wonderful philosopher, said. We need to have learned ignorance. That means we look at it as not as if we know it all, but that we have to know more about advantages and disadvantages of whatever mediums. And I will tell you at this moment in the research, my concept of a developmental proposal begins with books, print. I want our children from 0 to 10 to 12 to acquire those deep reading skills carefully. I want them laid down in the brain between 0 and 10. But simultaneously, I want our kids to be programming and coding. And my son is dyslexic. I work with children and adults with dyslexia. There's many an aid that I can give to complement that. But I want deep reading skills ingrained in the brain circuitry. And so the idea is that we can become not only bilingual, multilingual, but biliterate and multiliterate as our mediums change. So the future is now. I want to say only one last thing, and it's actually from Tolkien. When I thought about all of you there, I felt such a kinship. And I thought many of you are discouraged, but this whole conference is about encouraging you to think about the next aspect of the evolution of our species. So I'm going to end with Tolkien and say, it is our beautiful charge to rekindle hope through reading in a world that's grown chill. May you all be reading warriors.